So thank you so much, all of you, for being here and connecting with us today. So Ask Me Anything sessions were curated about 3 4 5 weeks ago. The whole idea behind curating these sessions was to have a platform where we all could come together, and we basically could ask questions. So, in each of the sessions, the format is we have a mentor talks about things which are important in the life of a student. Could be any topic, right? So we started with mindsets in our first session. We spoke about skills that you need to excel in your summer internships, and today we're going to talk about how do you actually leverage these summer internships at the time of your final placement. So that's what a mentor does in the first 15 minutes, and the 45 minutes to 1 hour is really for each one of you to ask as many questions as you have. The platform was curated with the belief that summers is a time when you should be actually focusing on summers. So everything else gets taken care of in these sessions. So if you have any questions that are on your mind, get them out of your way, talk to us here, and use your mind space to really focus on what's important. So today we have Shantanu with us. So we know, I have at least personally known Shantanu since maybe since 10 years now. We work together across multiple assignments. So Shantanu has had a career spanning more than 2 decades now. So he worked across different organizations in the capacity of chief operating officer. He was a director. He was a vice president in one of the IT firms. He's largely worked in ITES organizations. And 10 years ago, 10 or maybe 11 years ago now, he chose to follow his passion, and that passion was really to work with students, and actually help them put a structure to their B school experience, put a structure so that they are employable, they look at their careers differently, they make informed choices about the careers that they want to pursue. And he co-founded this organization called Ozone Education Consultants, which does tremendous work in the areas of student development, in the areas of career development. So he's a speaker, facilitator, mentor, coach. He dons multiple hats, and we're so glad that he's with us today. So we hope that whatever questions you have today for Shantanu, you are able to bring those out. We all will be very happy to address those questions. So Shantanu, over to you now. Shantanu, you're
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
mute.
I realized that the minute I said it. Unlike some of the other platforms, Zoom throws it up quite this thing. So, first of all, Meenu, thanks very much, and the Vans team, Srinivas and Faisal too, for all the nudges and the scripts. So, the first thing I noticed was when we said let's open the door gates, and then I suddenly found my snap, which was looking this big, suddenly becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as more and more people joined in. And my first response to myself was, hey, I'm lost, because I sort of diminished in size myself. Okay, and then I realized it is so nice to be lost in a sea of eager, happy, faces which are embarking on their career, and I couldn't be happier to be here, and it's a great opportunity. So, this is a important, very very important topic, and I think sometimes we underestimate it because this is just 2 months of the MBA program. But if I really look at what happens in an interview situation, uh, a good 40 to 50% of the interview happens around this. Okay, so I am assuming that all of you are first stroke second year students pursuing MBA. Is that a fair assumption? You can just say yes if it is. Is that a fair assumption, all of you? Yeah. And great. And most of you have, sort of finalized your SIP without getting into it. And by SIP, I mean the summer internship program, right? Now, before we get into, so I'll cover just two subjects here today. One is that there would be some myths about the SIP, which I just wanted to explode. So there would be some common misconceptions, and I'm just blowing up my screen a little bit. And be prepared for these, right? Be prepared for these because when we get into summers, we would normally expect that there is a huge structure. Day one, I go and ask my mentor that what is it I'm going to do. He's going to give me a document which is absolutely crystal clear. But be prepared for a situation that when you go in for a summer internship, you may actually, the first day might be a little bit of a surprise to you, which means that the organization does not have a proper structure, even in terms of you will ask that, so what am I going to do my SIP on? And the response come, what do you want to do your SIP on, right? And for some of you, your SIPs or summer internship programs may be very well defined. For some of you, it may not be so well defined. So when you go in for your SIP, go prepared. In case it is not defined, what do you talk about? What do you tell them? So that's number one. Number two is, remember, this is your SIP. So the onus of doing everything, including your reviews, etc., that is something with the onus lies completely on you. And I do remember at some point of time in my career, of course, I was much older and not technically a student. I had gone to the UK for a scholarship, and then I was with a company, and I found it very difficult to get across to my project guide because he was so busy. It just didn't happen. And a good 15 days passed, and I asked him, so Richard, how does one get time with you? So he says, I really don't have time to give you because we are super busy now. But what you could do is that whenever I go for a drink of water, whenever I go for the cafeteria, and even when I go to the washroom, and all these areas were a good 2 to 3 minutes by walk away, you can walk with me. And then I realized that if I do that constantly every time, I will get, let's say he takes 7 such breaks in a day, I will get a good 20 minutes with Richard, which was good enough for me. Okay. And that's the kind of initiative which you'll have to take, because otherwise you'll keep waiting. The second thing which I want to clarify here is, a lot of you would have got summers, a lot of you may not have got summers. It's not necessary that the summer project must be like the job you are aiming for. So you could have done a summers in ITC, you may get placed in TCS. You could have done a summers in Zensar, and you may get placed in Standard Charter. So the summer may not necessarily be in line with what you're doing. And I think especially with COVID and all of that around, the recruiters will understand. And even in the pre-COVID days, they understood that the summer may not be exactly what you're going to do. Thirdly, many of you, maybe in this room and beyond this room, may not actually get a summer directly from the market. In which case, your institute comes and tells you that I will give you a research project and you research on this company and stuff like that. So a secondary research project is not acceptable, is a myth that needs to be broken. A secondary research project is also acceptable. And it's not necessary that you do a project in an area which you like, right? So the project could very well be in an area where you are getting exposed to, so you may not like that area. So for example, as an MBA finance, you may dislike selling or you may not like selling, but the project will give you an exposure to selling, so you could go in the for the final interview and state that it's not something which came to me naturally, but I thought it was a necessary learning. So that's, the project must be in an area that you like. Now let's come to the second part, where interviewers will, what do they look for? So let me give you two stories, and you all can just type in the chat box which one is more appealing to you, right? So story number one, I did my project with, and for argument's sake, this fictitious, but the names are not fictitious. I may have interchanged some of the facts. Okay, I did my project with Pepsi in Patna, and my project was all about getting larger market share in this district of Patna. So that's objective number one. Objective number two, a student comes and says that Pepsi and Coke were about even Stevens in this market in the district. However, in the last 3 years, we noticed that Coke was stealing a march over Pepsi. So Pepsi appointed me and 70 other students from different B schools to work in different areas of the Bihar market. And there were 6 of us who were allocated to Patna to actually find out why customers were moving from Pepsi to Coke. Now, which in the chat box you can put which is the objective which you liked better and why. So I'll just give you a minute. So just put in the chat box which of the two objectives did you like better and why? Objective number one or objective number two? Okay, objective number one is that I was in Pepsi and we were checking out why we were losing market share in a particular area. And the second is very clearly, he says we were losing to Coke. So two, and Satyan is talking about two. So SD is talking about two. It was more detailed, and there is a very clear business driver why we are doing this project. There is a very clear business driver why we are doing this project. Now, from whose perspective is the business driver? So, why am I doing the project? The question is, and this is a question which you have to answer on maybe day one or day two of the project, that why has the company chosen to give me this project? Okay. And all of you have got it kind of right. Tista Singh, Manu, Alpana, Abhishek, Vrinda, everyone. I may have missed out a few names, but you got this correct. So that's an objective, very clear objective from the company's perspective. Why has the company given you this project? And in a lot of management pitches, I firmly believe that you always start with why am I doing what I am doing, okay, and therefore that objective is very important. Now take another question. Let's say I've done a simple market research project in which I have surveyed about 300 people. I have done a thorough job, but I did this in June, July 2021, and my interview is happening in December of 2021. And the interviewer asked me, so how many people did you interview? And I remembered that number, and I said I did about 300 people. And then the next question he asks is that how many of them readily filled the form? Who was your toughest? How many of you readily filled the form and you don't have the data, which is kind of there? You remembered it at some point of time, but with the passage of time that data has gone. Then he asks you that who was your toughest guy you interviewed? And you remember there was this guy in somewhere in Nasik who was the toughest, and he gave you a tough time. He gave a tough feedback on the company, but you don't remember the details. But just imagine, supposing you had written down this everywhere, and when the question comes to you a day back, you have written, looked at your notes and kind of studied all that, and you answer that there were two people who were very tough. One was Mr. Ajay Gupta from Nasik. He lived on the outskirts of Nasik. And there was somebody else called Mr. Mohite, also of Nasik. And this was the reason why they were tough. Now, the important thing is that you have done a certain amount of work, but there is a huge time gap between the time you have done the work and the time you're interviewed on that work. So let that time gap not erode your memory. Be very sharp and be very intentional about carrying that. So the first is about the objective. The second is about the rigor of work done. The third question they will ask you is that did you give any recommendations? Now this is a tricky one because you are a trainee. You have worked for a company. The company has owners like maybe Srinivas or Minu. They have seen the exposure they have had to businesses for a very large amount of time. But you could say that we we were youngsters, but we felt that maybe their campaigns were not strong enough. In this particular case of Pepsi versus Coke, this was very clear that competition had given certain mini freezers to the retailers, which the other folks didn't. So Coke's drinks were simply kept cooler, and that is why the market went. Now, this seems a very simple kind of recommendation, but this recommendation went to the company. So, number one is your recommendation, and number two is, then they might ask, so you gave this recommendation in July, and what happened to the recommendation? And you say, I really don't know, because I gave this recommendation in July and I really don't know. Now, compare this with somebody who says that, you know what, I actually went back to my project guide in September or October and I asked him that, sir, we had given these two recommendations. What happened? And I'm happy to announce that my project guide says that one of the recommendations we are considering, and we have put a task force behind it, but the recommendation which you guys made about the layout of our flyers, etc., that has been implemented, right? So, which means that it's almost like you give a tuition to a kid, you give a tuition to a kid, and at the end of your stint, the father of the kid pays you your money. 7 days later, the kid writes an exam. Now, there will be some of you who would say that paisa mil gaya, theek hai, I'm going home, that's okay. But there will be some of you who will take moral responsibility of your teaching or the recommendations you made to the student and ask you about uh, what happened. So it's not only important that you make certain recommendations, however small they may be, but you also have a belief, you also have an ownership, you also have a curiosity to find out what happened to that recommendation. Fourth question, about the company. And this is something you need to, so if the company is ITC or something like that, you got to know things about the about ITC, because they might ask you who's the current CEO or chairman or whatever of ITC. So at that point of time, you never interacted with the chairman or CEO, but you must know as part of the company details that this is Mr. Sanjeev Puri. Now, you would also be expected to know something about the turnover of the company. Now, so for example, you did it in Amul. Now, I'm assuming, I could be a little wrong here, but maybe the youngsters, Devesh and all, can help me out. But supposing Amul were a 40,000 crore company or a 50,000 crore company, you need to remember that. Not the exact figures, but at least be accurate on the order of magnitude. So if Amul is 45,000 crores and you say, I think it should be in the range of 50,000 crores, acceptable. But if Amul is 40,000 crores and you say must be about 400 crores, then it is almost like saying that the average height of an Indian male is 3 feet 6 inches, or the average height of an Indian male is 6 feet 7 inches. It just indicates that you don't even have a feel of the numbers. So know about the company. And if you work in a company, in a large company, put Google alerts and listen to every news about the company. Now, what if you're not working in a large company? What if you're working in a smallish company which not too many people have heard of? And let's say you're working with a CA called Gulab Chand and Sons. Okay, and you say, I was working in this Gulab Chand and Sons, it's in Nasik, and this Gulab Chand is known to my dad, and that's how I got into the company. Now, does this sound okay? Or does this sound, or do you glorify Mr. Gulab Chand a little bit? So you say that Mr. Gulab Chand and Sons is one of the most respected CA firms in Nasik. It was started by Mr. Gulab Chand, who is the father of the current owner, who is Tarun Chand. And let me, before I get into the company, let me tell you a little about Tarun Chand. He's a CA topper. He consults to companies like ENY, KPMG, whatever. So what you have done is that you have taken a trivial sounding company, and instead of saying theek hai wo ek Gulab Chand company hai, you have actually glorified the company and brought it, sort of, you have not boasted. What you have spoken about is the truth, but you have made the company look very nice in the eyes of the people who are hearing it, because they have not heard of Gulab Chand and company. So by talking about Tarun Chand, by talking about his clients, you are actually giving a very good picture to Tarun Chand, and you say it was a pleasure working with Mr. Tarun Chand. We used to talk almost every day, and I have not met such a super mentor as him. And two of the lessons which I learned from Mr. Tarun Chand are this. Okay. Then the last area I talk about is SIP++. So what did you do beyond SIP? Let me tell you a story. So about 10 years back, I mentored a student, and I still remember his name. His name is Chetan Lokhande. Now, Chetan wasn't one of my best students. He was a shy guy. He was academically quite good, quite intense. He was a typical engineer, MBA type, still more engineer than MBA. Now, the I interviewed Chetan. I always thought he was mediocre till I interviewed him. We did a mock interview after his SIP, and Chetan suddenly come and told me that I've done two SIPs. And I was a little astounded. Here, people are struggling to do one SIP properly, and Chetan did two. Now, I grilled him on the two SIPs, and Chetan came out very strong on both the SIPs, which means that there was a work which was given to him, which I think was in the area of sales, but he also went beyond and did some work in the area of inventory. Now, when Chetan went in for his placements, I said that Chetan will get a decent job, but he will not get the best job. And M&M came on campus to their campus. And I said that Chetan stands maybe a 20-30% chance to get that M&M job. And Chetan comes back to me the next day with a very shy smile, a box of sweets, of which, of course, I took only one. And he tells me that, sir, ho gaya hai. And I said, kaise ho gaya hai? How did you make that magic happen? He said, sir, the turning point of my interview came when I told them I've done two SIPs. And because you had grilled me so hard, I had all the details and I gave it to them. So by SIP++, they are checking out whether you have a growth mindset, whether you are doing things beyond what you're asked for. So it could manifest itself in a second SIP. It could manifest itself in a simple thing like you were working with their DGM sales, but you made it a point also to meet the other functions of the company or virtually now today. It could be in the fact that you maintained social connect with a lot of the people that you were working with. It could be a fact that you did a main SIP and you did some small project and you did went beyond your scope of work. So what interviews are looking for, I call this SIP++. So to sum up this, and Fazal had kind of indicated how much time I have. So and this is the key message. So I want to sum up. So you can take a picture of this slide. I think it's important. So your objective, what is the kind of work done? How did you exit the project? What kind of recommendations you made? Your knowledge about the company. If it's a large company, it's public domain. If it's a small company, how is your passion about that company? What's your level of ownership about that company? And lastly, SIP++, which could also include the second SIP and so on. Okay. So with this background, I will stop sharing and wait a moment or two for this to kind of get into your system. And I would be very happy to take any questions that you have. And remember, when asking questions, there is nothing like a bad question or a good question. A question is something which just reflects a very learning kind of mindset, a certain curiosity. So all questions are welcome, and we will take. Faisal can just tell me how we go about this. But just to start, and Faisal, maybe you can correct me if I'm okay with the format. But since SD has raised his hand, we'll go with SD first, and then maybe with Samriddhi. Okay?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah. So SD, I know you're SD, but I don't know what SD stands for. So just put on your video when you speak. That would be very nice. We can see you as well.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Sir, my name is Samriddhi, and sir, I'm really sorry. There's an issue with my camera.
no problem. Go ahead.
So, sir, my question is that my first SIP was in an FMCG startup, but I
Hmm.
could not complete it because it was on site and the company did not have a work from home model.
Hmm.
So I had to come back home in like 25 days.
Hmm.
Now I'm doing a second SIP,
Hmm.
which is at a big firm.
Hmm.
But I'm more confident about the project objectives and the project work that was done for the previous SIP.
Understand.
So, what should I talk about in my final interviews?
Okay, so I think it's important to be very upfront and honest. So number one is that if I were you, and these are just suggestions, you got to internalize it yourself and see what works best for you. I think number one is that I would say that I did two SIPs, but I couldn't complete the first SIP because the model changed, right? And you could talk. So nobody is going to sort of hold it against you, or a sensible recruiter will not hold it against you because you don't have a certificate of completion. But if you're able to say what you did on those 25 days, including your project objective, etc., I think an average interviewer, even though you have not completed the SIP, will give you credit for that. However, in the second SIP, which the sense I'm getting is that you're not enjoying so much or you're not clear about the objectives, I think you should do a similar exercise with this. Even it could be even after the project, you have a casual conversation why this project was so important for you, but that storyline still has to come out, starting with the project, the rigor of the work done. And if you feel that it is stronger in the first one, you're always welcome to talk a little more about the first one. I don't think anyone will hold it against you. But having said that, even if you don't do as smashing a job or as satisfying a job in the second one, get those ticks in the box which I talked about: the objective of the project, the work that you did, the recommendations. Do ensure that those pieces are filled up.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Samriddhi.
So anyone else would like to ask any questions to Shantanu sir?
So let me ask you a question. Have most of you started your summers? So for example, like Samriddhi is on the second one. Have all of you started your summers? So anyone who hasn't started the summers can just unmute and say no, I have not started it.
Yes, sir, I have not started.
You have not started. Okay, has the summers been allocated to you, Sairaj?
Yes, sir, it has
It
been
has been
allocated.
allocated to you, right? Are you very clear at this stage about what you are going to do in that project?
So, yes, sir, but now the problem is since I was I was appointed as a sales intern in a FMCG company, but now since there is a lockdown, there is a issue regarding how to go about it. So I was going to ask the same question to you, sir. So basically, how do you find sales domain has been impacted after lockdowns, post COVID? Basically, how do you see a changes in sales domain?
Okay, so as of now, do you have a project?
Yes, sir, I do have that project, but still I am right now confused at how should I go about that.
Okay. So couple of things. Okay, so number one is that this project could well become a non-starter. Is that assumption correct, Sairaj, that it may not even start because of the confusion?
Yes, sir, it may be.
Okay. So so there are two or three alternatives that you can do. So one is that you could go back to your institute and say that this is a little bit of a question mark. Can I get a project on certain secondary research or something like that, so that you at least don't draw a blank out there? Okay, that's one option. Second is that probably there is something which you could get in touch offline with Faisal or Minu. I know for sure that within Vans they might have a few projects which are lined up with various startups that they are working with. So you need to connect with them pretty fast and get some of these. Okay, so you have two alternatives, but I think you should be prepared to the fact for the fact that your current project may be a non-starter. It may not take off. If it takes off, very well, well and good. But what if it doesn't take off? You cannot get into a situation where you have not done a summers. And to a certain extent, the institute will take responsibility for it. But look up, through Vans, or it could be any alternate source. Look at some other areas also where you can get some projects. So
Definitely,
my,
sir.
my recommendation is immediately after this call, do connect with Faisal and see if there is something which is available.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, in case you have any questions, please ask or put it on the chat window. Shantanu would be happy to answer.
Abhishek Patil, you had a question, so please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So basically, my question was, sir, I am pursuing my MBA.
Okay, you went off the line again. Yeah, go ahead. You're pursuing your
Yes.
MBA. You repeat that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Abhishek, maybe you want to type your question. Your voice is cracking. Maybe you type your question and we'll use that as a reference.
Okay. Just.
Meanwhile, anybody wants to ask a question, please raise your hands.
Okay, so this is Jai Shivam Rampal. Okay, so how? Okay, I think he's asked this question privately, but I think it's worth bringing it out in the open domain because it's a very general, but it's a very nice question. How should I leverage my internship in order to discover my strengths? Okay, now. Uh, to a certain extent, and I think this is a very key question, and I'll tell you why it is a key question. Because when you answer questions in an interview, so supposing I'll give you an example, and you can write on the chat box which one appeals to you more. So, supposing you say, I am a natural leader, I have natural leadership skills, okay? And in the second instance, you say that I'm a natural leader and I have been vice president of my students' council. Which sounds better and why? First or the second? Okay, you can just unmute and answer. It might be a little painful waiting for the chat box. Okay, there is a chat box. So example 2 as it is validated, right? Example 2, it is validated by certain facts. Okay. Now, when you look at your SIP, it might be worthwhile to actually make a note of some of your achievements in the SIP and whether it follows a certain pattern. So you could say we were expected to do something in 10 days, but we managed to do it in 7 days. And one of the reasons why we managed to do it in 7 days was because of better planning. So somebody says that, did you discover any strengths in your SIP? So you say that I discovered that I was a good planner, right? I was a good planner, and let me give you an example. It's also really worthwhile to have an exit interview at the end of the SIP and say that, look, I'm thankful to you for the time you have spent. I have spent about 1.5 months with you all, and I just wanted to know you as my project guide. What do you see as my strengths and what do you see as my areas for improvement? And your project guide will normally, people will be very gushing about your strengths, and they will be a little diplomatic about your areas for improvement and say that you could have done better here. You could question facts a little more, but some of your strengths may come up during that interview, right? And you could actually say that some of my strengths which I discovered during the interview were as follows, because these were pointed out to me by my project guide. And I also remember that when I was in college, one of the people had told me about the strengths. So when we talk about strengths, remember, it's not the name of the strength or description of the strength that is important. It's those instances that you can give where you kind of claim your strength. So you should be able to name your strengths and you should be able to claim your strengths. And by claiming your strengths, I mean you should be able to give examples to talk about your strengths. So look at those small successes in the SIP or maybe even people management skills. You say that it's too early to say, but I think I've got people management skills. How do you say that? Okay, there was this fellow who was working with me on my team and he was kind of reporting to me during the SIP. He was really down because he had some personal challenges in COVID. And one fine day we spoke for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and this is what I told him. And his productivity improved dramatically after that. So are you able to give certain instances there? So I thought that was a very good question. Does that answer your question? Okay. There are questions coming very fast on
Yes,
the.
sir.
Yeah, good. Okay. I love this unmute. Okay. Uh, I don't know if Jay Rampal raised his hand to ask something, but Jay Rampal has answered a couple of questions. But the next question is from. So let me read the question first, and then I'll decide. I've been assigned specific domain in my internship. Now, what should I do to make a good, genuine story in the final placement? So, Vishal, is it possible for you to unmute and ask this question? It'll probably give.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So my question is, I have been assigned some specific domain to work on in my internship,
Uh-huh.
and they obviously, and the company requires some contributions in that specific domain.
Hmm.
And sometimes it happens that we are not able to look at the other aspects of like the supply chain, how the supply chain works, what are the other things in manufacturing that is required, what are the other marketing techniques are used by other in other domains. So
Hmm.
this happens, but when it comes to any interviews, or rather say when we had a mentor talk, he started asking me how are these things working out. So I
Hmm.
wasn't able to answer. So I got this thing that whenever I will be having my final placement, if they ask me these questions, so I
Hmm.
would be totally clueless. So what should I do so that I will be able to prepare myself in these aspects,
Okay. So, did you have
so
a
I can make a good story
project guide?
in industry or in
No,
fact.
in the summer project. Did you have a guide or something like that in the summer
Uh,
project?
yes, I have it, but it's yeah, I have the industry thing.
Okay. Do you have the confidence to reach out to that project guide again?
Sir, I can ask him again, but
Yeah.
I don't think because the work is so much that discussing these things, I will have to ask him and then
Uh,
take
uh,
time out for this thing.
you can possibly say that I want to connect with you for half an hour, and I have some questions which I think are important. You could give me half an hour anytime. There is no urgency, but I need that half an hour with you, right? So, if you tell somebody that I need half an hour with you in the next 2 days, normally the person will try and avoid it. But if you tell him that, can you give me half an hour anytime during the next 2 weeks, the chances are better that you'll get it. Now, what will happen is that if you have got your own domain story right, Vishal, you have done, I would say, 60-70% of the job. But I think the question your mentor was asking you was essentially about SIP plus plus, that how much work have you done outside of the domain of your SIP, if I've understood you correctly. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
And so you have to find out those answers, and you have to ask yourself that what are the sources in which I can get those answers. Can I get those answers by just reading about the company, by visiting the company website? Can I get those answers by talking to my project guide? Can I get those answers by talking to somebody who was not a project guide but almost a peer? But you need to get those answers.
Okay, so but my another extension to this question is, what do companies in the final expect when they ask these questions? So what should I look into and what shouldn't I?
They would expect you to have an overall understanding of the company's operations and not just a bird's eye view of where you were working. Okay. In an ideal situation, they would expect you to understand the entire ecosystem and a slightly higher level view, and not just restricted to the areas where you were working. So remember, you were talking about that you're working in a particular process, but they might expect you to know who are the suppliers, who are the consumers, and that may not have been part of the project. They may expect you to answer questions on what are the customer trends which are happening in the market. Okay. And to a certain extent, you know what, which brings me to an interesting point, we can also lead the interview in such a way. So you say, Vishal can say that I was working on this aspect, but I was very curious about this particular aspect. So supposing you're stronger on the customer side rather than the supply chain side, so you say that in addition, I took some trouble on talking to a few of the customers or talking to some of the sales guys who meet their customers. Then you can rest assured that the interviewer will probably shift a little bit and the questioning will be more towards that. So it's like if I say, tell me something about myself, the way I answer that question, that will lead me to the next question. So if I end up by saying, and I'm passionate about reading, okay, then it's very likely that the next question will come from reading. So Vishal, if you are not fully confident that you will get the entire big picture, try and at least get some bits and pieces of the picture, which is part of the big picture, which is beyond your SIP, which you can talk about comfortably, and lead the interviewer onto that.
Yes, sir.
Make sense?
Definitely. Thank you. Yes, sir, definitely. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so you are not strong. You talk about the supply chain and the customer. You have no clue on the supply chain, but you have a clue on the customer, and say that I made it a point to know about their customers because to me the customer is king. It's a customer-centric world, etc. Then there will be two questions: what did you know about the customer, and what do you understand by customer
Yeah.
centricity? So you have led the question.
So yeah, I have decided the flow then.
You okay? You
Yeah. Yeah.
okay? Awesome. So
Thank you.
Abhishek had a question. Okay, again, Abhishek, if you could unmute, it will be great. Okay, I always prefer the question to be asked. I understand it better. I'm probably better at listening than reading. Okay, and then Manu can come in. Abhishek, are you there? Okay, so let me read out Abhishek Patil's question, and I think he had a problem, so he couldn't unmute. So I'm pursuing my MBA first year. I'm planning for major specialization in marketing and minors in business analytics. So if I go for SIP in marketing and there's a company for BA profile final placements, how would my marketing SIP impact that thing? Okay, so there are two ways of answering this question. Abhishek, if you can hear me, at least put a thumbs up or something like that so that I know you're able to hear me, or just write a yes in the chat box. Okay, so number one is that my suggestion here would be that even if you haven't done a project in business analytics and your project was more on core marketing, that is not something which is completely under your control, because SIPs are few, they are difficult to get, and whatever you have got, you have got. Now, if you are applying for a business analytics project, and just to put you on the defensive, the interviewer asks, but you have done a project in core marketing, where is it? What have you done in business analytics? It might be useful then, even if you have not done something in your SIP, pick out some case studies of a similar industry in business analytics and say that while I did not have a chance to do it on site, but I did some secondary research and I studied in depth two industries. So, how is business analytics helping in the healthcare industry, or how is business analytics helping in the food care industry? And these are the two case studies that I studied. So remember one thing, just because you have done a BA course, nobody would expect you to be an ace in BA at this stage. They just want to know whether you know enough, and you have a learning mindset there. So even if you have not done BA in particular in that placement thing, explain the situation that I had one thing and I really couldn't get in. But on my own, because this is an area of passion and interest, on my own, I did these two case studies. Uh, and then your answer will probably be, at least from an effort point of view, much richer. Okay. So Abhishek, if you have heard me, just type a quick yes. So I'll get into my next question. This is coming from, and Abhishek, will you be able to follow this path and read up some case studies about business analytics? And I'll tell you, one of the areas where you'll get a lot of case studies is go to the website of any IT company and look at the area which calls case studies. You will find a lot of case studies as far as business analytics is concerned. So try that out. If for some reason you can't find it, we will help you find it. Okay. So okay, so we have a question from Manu Harshvardhan. Sir, in my university, second semester MBA has started in March and second semester exams are not going. What should be my approach for SIP? So Manu, if you can unmute, the sense which I get from your question is that there is no chance that you can do an SIP in the time frames that we are talking about. Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there are similar board students that I am facing, in terms of I don't know about Mumbai University, but definitely in Pune University, most of the MBA students joined in January, and the interviews will start in August, and there is no way in which they can fit in an SIP into a curriculum. So one of the things you can do is to work with your faculty and do some secondary research on some of the projects. The other thing which you can do is talk to industry people or industry bodies. For example, touch base with Faisal, etc., whether they have some small 15-day projects, 20-day projects, 25-day projects, because I think uh, saying that despite these constraints, I have done either a research project along with my institute or I've done a small project for a client, etc., will work much better than saying that because of the university system, I couldn't do something at all. Because most of the recruiters, they may sort of empathize with you, etc. But on the other hand, there will be a lot of PGDM students whose courses started on time and who are in a much advanced thing. So my recommendation would be to try and do something at least outside the system, however best you can do it, but don't let it go a complete blank.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
Shantanu, I may just want to add here. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think, this is slightly not an uncommon problem. I mean, of course, this year the MMS has started off in January, February, and therefore this challenge exists. But, 2 points I wanted to make. One, I think it's a hard reality that 90% of the students, and I repeat, 90% of the students probably do not land up in a summers, which, for want of better word, is something which is 100% matching to their ambition and desire to say so. And that's the trend for years. So which means you want to do something in equity research, as an example. You may land up in doing sales for, portfolio management. Nothing wrong. You're learning something out of everything in life, including sales, including understanding products, etc., but may not be of what you want it to be. Yeah. And that's 90%. I think the best way, which Shantanu has touched upon, is try looking at a second summers, which means whatever summers you have got, your learnings, great. In addition to that, try doing a small 15, 20 days, 30 days certification / projects that really would help you to learn and come closer to your ambition areas. And trust me, having gone to hundreds of campuses for recruitment over 23 years now, if a student tells me that I've done 2 projects, this is on sales and this is on finance, I'm just making up, right? Finance. Okay. These are 5 learnings out of sales, but my real passion was in finance, and these are the things I've done. Frankly, as a industry recruiter, I really don't care about quote unquote a certification, completion, etc. It is what have you learned? What was your objective? What have you delivered? And how have you evolved as a professional over that period of time to understand how business works? I think that's important. Yeah. So, not just yourself, but anybody who has got a project of their own desire, project, if it is not to their ambition, it's absolutely fine to do a second project. You have to work a little more harder. That's the only point. Yeah. Over to you, Shantanu.
Awesome. So I'll take the next question from Samriddhi. And Samriddhi, I think you had previously asked a question about that unfinished project. And I think a lot of what Srinivas says answers that question, that people are not really interested in a formal completion. They are more interested in what have you learned, how have you evolved, how have you developed, and stuff like that. So Samriddhi's question could apply to everyone. So do I pack my CV to the brim with a lot of facts and some I'm not confident about? And or do I just keep my CV very minimalistic with stuff I'm really confident about? Okay, now this answer could vary from individual to individual, but my sense is that there is something called an interviewer's fatigue. And an interviewer's fatigue is looking at CV after CV with facts crammed in, the same kind of fact, everyone talking about, I've got terrific communication skills, I've got leadership skills, I've got this, I've got that. So I think, Samriddhi, to answer your question, I think there are 2 parts which are important. Number one is between having facts, and having facts which you don't know about can be very tricky in an interview. Because, for example, I work with a campus which teaches everybody something called spin selling. Okay, that's a questioning technique. So everyone writes, did a workshop on spin selling, but many of them in an interview, by the time it comes, are not able to explain it. And when somebody asks, what did you do in spin selling? They said, oh, sir, it was some time back. I don't really remember. So rather than putting facts that you're not confident about, I would try to be minimalistic. The second is that I would constantly ask myself that is my CV looking like anybody else's? So leadership skills, team skills, it is looking like anybody else's. But am I putting differentiators in my CV? So maybe you could look at 5, 6 CVs which are floating around and see that are there any differentiators which are happening. So I would be a bigger fan of minimalistic CVs with differentiators rather than CVs which are very exhaustive and containing areas where you are not yourself very confident about. That could be inviting trouble. Samriddhi, does that answer the question?
Yes, sir, it does, sir. So, with just one question.
Yes.
So in a batch of like 250 students,
Mm-hmm.
the main thing the company looks while shortlisting the CV is that how much material does the CV have. That is why I asked this question. So the more the projects, the more the chances of shortlisting.
Yeah, you could put projects, etc. So you could put project details, but leave out the ones which are this thing. So uh, uh, see, I'm not very sure whether they shortlist CVs based on necessarily projects and all that. I think some of the yardsticks they will use while shortlisting CVs is more the academic credentials. So I'll give you a small example. So for example, Deloitte has a great one for taxation, Deloitte taxation. And when they do the shortlisting, they actually eliminate the engineer MBA, saying that this guy will not fit into the taxation role. So yeah, Srinivas, I'll just give it to you in this thing.
And then no problem. Yeah.
So the shortlist may not necessarily be on the volume of the facts that you've written, and shortlisting is never a very subjective kind of area. There are pretty well laid down guidelines for shortlisting. So they might say that no gaps, no ATKTs, okay, no gaps. So no gaps means if you have done engineering in 2017 and you have not worked, and 2022 you have started doing MBA, then you'll automatically get struck out. Okay, so I don't think it's a function of volume. So handing it over to Srinivas because he had something to contribute here as well, and he's seen a lot of this shortlisting happening, both in Vans as well as in other organizations. Over to you, Srinivas.
All right, thank you, Shantanu. And Samriddhi, it's a slightly a misconception, if I can say so. You know, the way shortlisting happens is probably exceptions could be there, but 9 out of 10 organizations probably is that, as Shantanu says, we parameterize things. Okay. So, for example, I worked in one company for 20 years where I was the CEO of the financial services. Okay. So, our shortlisting criteria, for example, 0 ATKT. So, if somebody has an ATKT and if the person is brightest of bright, doesn't matter, system or the person shortlisting would not shortlist the person to say so. Yeah. Now, in certain organizations, work experience counts. Okay, they would categorize people saying that at least they had 1 year work experience, no work experience. Now, third would be kind of summers and articulation of the summers. Okay, for example, in financial services, I would always love to have somebody who understands a little bit of banking or NBFC. So if my summers was banking or NBFC, could be one of the criteria. So the criteria are very objective and not a toss of a paper to say that, who has filled in 20 pages, etc. Fun fact, but hard reality. Many a times, resumes of these schools are also a source of a little bit of fun for the people who are shortlisting. 99% of the students are member of some committee or other. Okay, sports committee, some event day, case study, etc., etc. Okay, so if you are looking at 100 resumes, 99 of them will have some committee. How would the company person even know whether that committee is an important committee, non-important committee? So that gets discounted. Okay. 99% of the students probably would have participated in some case study or other, which is good. But
Srinivas, you've gone on mute.
sorry. Yeah. Okay. Similarly, large set of students, 99% of them would participate in one quiz competition, inter-college something. That also comes in. Okay. Third would be, somebody is a mess secretary, somebody is a hostel secretary, but more or less everybody is either in placement committee or some committee, right? So while your resume is filled, internally we feel that ki boss, good, I hold 3 positions, I have written 4 case studies, I have done 5 projects. Little do you know that 90% of the students write the same. So I think what you will have to look at is when you write your resume, etc. While fairly standardized, depending on the company, you may have to just think through saying what could be the criteria for this company. Okay, have I done anything meaningful in that? Supposing you have done 10 projects. I come from ICICI Bank as an example. I may not be very overly keen on your 10 projects. I may be keen 1 or 2 projects which you may have done in banking or credit cards or something related. So we may have to slightly customize that part as well. Yeah. So it's not a quantity game. There is, iota of luck somewhere. Sometimes it happens because if the person who is shortlisting and your graduation college is same, for example, given everything same, once in a while luck could favor, but that's not a how do I put it? That's not a necessary condition. Very objective methods companies use for shortlisting. So I think follow my own advice is follow what Shantanu has kind of said is curate, pick up what is most relevant where you know what is it. Okay. And if you all think hard reality, if you all think that the interviewer has gone through your resume 5 days before, he's prepared with his questions, he's mentally waiting to come and meet you and select you or not select you, answer is he or she would be looking at your resume 5 minutes before the interview starts. So the moment you put lot of hodgepodge, lot of things, my first impression would be was मैं पूछूं तो क्या पूछूं इनको. Yeah. So we have to be careful about it. A few general stuff, one general stuff rather, make sure that don't do grammatical errors and spelling mistakes. Okay, that puts off most of the recruiters. Correct? You know, sometimes we mix up certain words, whether there are two sound similar but two different spellings for whether. Correct? Some place, where comma needs not be used or long paragraphs are written. Past tense, present tense are clubbed up. The moment if the guy cannot grasp ki in 2 minutes time, what have you done? He or she is put off. So I think be careful about that aspects. Yeah. Over to you, Shantanu.
Yeah, great. And that's curating as per company. I think that's a great message because we are talking about SIP here, but one of the questions which will come in an interview is why should I select you? Now, when you ask a question, why should I select you? Is the starting point your achievements or is the starting point their JD? And I think it makes a lot of sense if the starting point is their JD, saying that I could be wrong, but it appears from your job description that you're looking at the following skills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here is how I respond to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have got good examples. I can name and I can claim 3 of them. The fourth I really don't know. And the fifth I know is a weakness. I got to try it out. So you start with the JD and you work backwards. And similar with the CV. So you curate your CV as per the JD. And remember, it's always the JD should be a starting point for building up your pitch as a candidate.
Thank you so much, Shantanu sir and Srinivas sir. It was a very insightful answer.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. I think, Shantanu, one more question from Manu Harshavardhan. You can take that question. And,
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So since you mentioned case study competition, can we include those cases which we haven't received participation certificate? Okay, this is a little like Srinivas's answer. So I think if the case study competition you find is generic and of no relevance whatever to the interview, I think you could just leave it out. Okay, because you have been a participant, you have not been a winner. However, if you feel that you have participated and it's something to do with which is very dear to the company, okay, or very close to the JD, or you have done some website research and this is an area on which the company is working, and you feel confident that you will be able to talk about it, the case study competition, what did you do, the preparation, by all means go ahead. So I think you'll have to just look at the relevance of of that case study competition vis-a-vis their requirements or the company's thing. Again, what I call is an outside in view, which means that you first look at what they want and then you look at what you have. So hope that answers your question, Manu.
Yeah, I think before we close, there's a feedback form that Faisal has sent and request all of you to take 30 seconds to fill in that feedback form. Perhaps, almost on a weekly basis, we keep having multiple sessions. So it's always useful to get that feedback. So please click on that chat window, what Faisal has sent, and, do that. Any questions that you have at any point of time, not just during summers, but your placements, etc. Feel free to connect with us. We are very happy to mentor. All of us derive our energy and pleasure in actually mentoring students, and that's what Shantanu has been doing for so many years, and we are also been doing for a few years now. So I'll request Faisal to. You have Faisal's email ID. That's where you would have got your email ID. So feel free to write. We are very, very happy whether you are directly connected with us, not connected with us, does not matter. We will be very glad to answer your questions. Yeah. So thank you so much, Shantanu, for sharing.
Srinivas and guys, thank you very much. Faisal, Minu, everyone, and all you participants. Like we say, so you interact with students, and your Saturday evening kind of gets made. Okay, so it's good fun for us as well. All the best. You guys stay safe. Bad times. Take special care of yourselves.
Yeah. And
For times.
remember that world is also not that rational. So some difficulties that you have during the COVID period, world has also faced. So the recruiters, etc., would be mindful of those fights. So don't get overly psyched on that. Yeah. So thank you so much, guys. Please click on it and fill your feedback. Yeah. Thank you.
I'll take leave, Srinivas.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye.